Welcome everyone to our Marketing Mayhem event. We'd love if you could put your video on to join us today. We're not a crazy big group, so this should be pretty intimate. Hey Gabby, good to see you. While we let everyone join, if you want to put in the chat where you're joining us from, we'll start with that so we can see where everyone's coming from. I'm in Austin right now. We're amidst like our big music festival, ACL. I don't know if anyone's heard of it or has been, but I went over the weekend and I was most excited to see Kendrick, and he showed up an hour and a half late to the show and only performed for 15 minutes. So I think that was probably the most disappointing ACL. All right, let me look in my chat. We have Philadelphia, San Jose. Where else? Ariana's from New York. That's where Isis is. Isis is going to Fashion Week in New York. Brianna, Chicago. Leslie, Dallas, you're not too far. Got a couple Dallas. All right, and then anyone want to put what they're going to be for Halloween this year, or just your ideas yet, or any inspo? I'm like in deep Pinterest and TikTok right now trying to figure out what to be, but it's so hard to decide. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started in just a second here. So I'm going to introduce myself, and we're going to get into our guest speakers in a couple minutes. I'm Natalie Peters. I'm the founder and CEO of Sky Society. I'm also the host of the Sky Society podcast. And a lot of you have likely seen me on LinkedIn in some form or another. All of the women you see in purple sweatshirts that are all around you, those are our accelerator graduates. They graduated from our marketing bootcamp last week, and they are the ones that did all of the marketing and ideation and planning for this event that you guys are here today. So if you have any questions, you can talk to any of the girls in the purple sweatshirts. We also have our three guests, Kirsten Post, Kimmy Brill, and Gabby Mishnoff, and they are all early career talent recruiters who are going to share their advice for you as job seekers, specifically focusing on your experience being a job seeker when you're young, when you may not have a ton of experience and you're just starting out and trying to navigate what that landscape is like. So they're going to each do a quick 10-minute just talk. Well, they'll talk to you and share their advice. And then after each round, they'll open it up to Q&A where you can ask them questions. And then we're going to do a bigger Q&A at the end of the session. A little bit about Sky Society. Hopefully I see a couple familiar faces, and I see some previous other accelerator graduates. I see Kylie, I see Cindy. I think I saw a couple others that I'm hard because there's too many of you on the screen, but I see some familiar faces. If you have not heard of Sky Society before, basically we do create a bunch of resources to support women in marketing early in their career. We have a huge LinkedIn group that you should make sure that you join. We have almost 10,000 women in that group, where you can just post your portfolio and get feedback on it, or share your story or your journey. We share resources in there. We do a job board where we post entry-level marketing jobs categorized by years of experience. We also have a podcast where we interview women in marketing and we share their journeys to their career success and just really promote nonlinear career journeys, and that there's not one right way to finding your dream job or to finding success in your career, and just really opening up your eyes to all the different possible marketing jobs that are out there for you. And again, I'm Natalie, so feel free to connect with me or talk to me on LinkedIn after the event as well. I'm going to put, now that we're pretty much all here, I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is going to be our event page here today. So there is a directory that we have for you girls to connect with each other after the event. Don't fill it out now. You can just keep this link and do that later, but I have that linked for you at the top. I also have each of our speakers and little bios for them. And if you click on those images, it'll take you to their LinkedIns if you want to connect with them after the event. And then at the bottom, I have all of our graduates and their portfolios if you want to check out our graduates and support them in their career journey. So those are all there for you. I've introed and talked enough, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to go through each of our career recruiter speakers. And again, at the end, there will be Q&A. Feel free though, if you'd like, you can put questions in the chat and I will read those out and ask those to the guests, or if you like, you can hold off and then you could just unmute yourself after the guest is done speaking and you can ask your questions. Okay, Haley, would you like to introduce our first guest?
Yes, our first speaker is Kirsten Post. Kirsten is the senior university recruiter at Gartner, a $5 billion technological research and consulting firm with nearly 20,000 employees. Kirsten is passionate about connecting with new people, learning about their interests, and pairing them to a company she believes they'll succeed in. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you so much, Haley. What a nice intro to have. I'd already written my own intro, but now I don't even need to go through it. But thank you guys so much for having me. I have been in the early career recruiting space for about 5 years now, and I absolutely love it. A big part of that has spent specifically in university recruitment. And so a big part of that is that I travel to a lot of college campuses. I've been to 92 college campuses here in the US throughout my personal and professional life. And I recruit for different jobs and internships that Gartner has. And I also give career advice. And I do this across a variety of different roles that we have here, ranging from things like client success, software engineering, and research, to name just a few. Keeps me on my toes, getting to work with a lot of different types of people. But it's something that I felt passionate about for a long time. And easily my favorite part of the job is coaching people through the process and guiding young job seekers through their first professional experience, whether that is an internship or their first full-time role, which is why I was so excited that Natalie asked me to participate in this event and to share some common mistakes or like job advice that I have for these young job seekers, all of you. So I'll start off strong. I've got 3 pieces that I wanted to kind of touch on today. And I'll start off strong by saying that there is nothing more frustrating for a recruiter than when somebody says that they are open to any and every type of role available. And I think it's because we both know that it's not true. If you are somebody who doesn't like working with numbers, you're not going to be happy in an analytics role. Or if you are a more introverted person, you're not going to love being on the phone with clients 24/7. And so a recruiter is really just looking for that jumping off point to match you with a role that they think would be the best fit. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm always looking for an exact title of what you want to do. Titles can be a little bit dicey and a little bit of a trap, because an account manager at one company could do something completely different than an account manager at another company. And so it can also limit you when you're job searching. If you're only searching for the same 1 to 3 job titles over and over again, you're going to really limit the types of opportunities that you have available to you or that you're going after. And so what I really recommend is, what a recruiter is looking for is, we're looking for you to know the types of responsibilities, tasks, and projects that you want to work on in that new role. And that can take a little bit of introspection in terms of knowing, all right, what do I want to do? Just having this general sense is so important. So I really recommend taking time to think about previous roles or responsibilities that you've had before that you've really liked and enjoyed. What have you found yourself volunteering for in your job or in your classes or in your extracurriculars, your volunteer activities? What are the things that you've found yourself raising your hand for, maybe that you've gotten recognition for? Because just because you're good at something doesn't always necessarily mean that you like it either. So knowing the difference between those two things is important. And then I also always recommend reach out to your family, reach out to your friends, your colleagues, and ask them, what do you see about me that maybe you're not seeing for yourself? I know for me, I did this with a friend once, and she goes, well, yeah, you love public speaking. I was like, check. You love talking to people. Check. This is all aligning. And then she goes, you know what else you love? Personal finance. I have an art degree in graphic design, degree I've never used a day in my life, but I'd never really thought about it before. And because I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, she recognizes this in me. I started posting about it more on LinkedIn, and I actually got an opportunity to contribute to an article last year around salary transparency because of that, which is something that would have never happened if she hadn't mentioned it to me. So I think that's a really good way to get an outsider's perspective. And so once you have this figured out, you can start looking at jobs, start looking at hopefully a wider pool of titles to go through in your job search. But having that basic understanding is going to make a big difference with a recruiter. And then my second piece of advice is around networking. I know, a bit of a buzzword, but networking is something I feel so passionate about because it's not just a number on your LinkedIn profile in terms of how many connections you have, but it truly is consisted of your family, your friends, your old coworkers, your professors, your alumni. It can be so many different types of people that you may not have even considered before. And it doesn't just happen magically. You do have to work at expanding your network. And that could be things like joining amazing LinkedIn groups. So you all have taken an awesome step today by being part of this event, by being part of the Sky Society LinkedIn page. This is a great opportunity to expand your network, but also maybe it's joining local organizations. My good friend joined the Junior Women's League in her city, absolutely loves it. It could be within your own company. I'm part of Toastmasters at Gartner. I'm actually the president of Toastmasters at Gartner, which is a public speaking group. And now I get to interact with associates who are in different departments, who are in different countries. And that would have never happened if I hadn't joined this group. And lots of companies have employee resource groups like that. And it's not just about joining the groups, but truly actively engaging in them. So we'll go with LinkedIn here for a sec, since that's the platform that we've all connected through. So not just joining a LinkedIn group, but are you actively posting in that group? Are you engaging with other people in that group? Are you commenting? Are you offering advice or suggestions? And that just goes on LinkedIn in general. Are you following people in your industry that you think are really interesting, who've had a cool career path? Are you following recruiters for companies that you really admire? And then again, not just following them, but engaging with them. I know as someone who posts on LinkedIn all the time, I notice the same people who engage with my content on a consistent basis. And I'm so grateful for that support. And I recognize them when they message me and it's like, oh, hey, Kirsten, I love your content. This role has opened up at Gartner. I am 10 times more likely to interact with them because I know that they have been supporting me for a while. That kind of brings me to the second point of networking. You might have heard this phrase, the hidden job market. A lot of roles are filled either through referrals or through word of mouth, sometimes before they're even posted on job boards. And expanding your network can gain you access and visibility into what that hidden job market is when there are opportunities available. And so the idea of networking is hopefully you're creating this mutually beneficial relationship, right? Somebody is supporting me and connecting with me on LinkedIn, engaging with my content, boosting it, whatever you want to say. And then when the time comes that I have the opportunity to help them, again, I'm 10x more likely to do it because of that engagement. And then my last, and probably the mistake I see the most during the actual interview process itself, is people not ready to share specific examples from their experiences. Recruiters are going to ask you questions like, tell me about a time when, can you give me an example of? Who's gotten a question like that? And when I'm asking that question, we are looking for a specific example. So for an instance, a question I ask a lot in the interview process is, can you tell me about a time that you got constructive feedback? And students will come back to me and they'll go, oh my God, I love getting feedback. I think it's so important. And my professors give me feedback on my papers all the time. I think it's great to have feedback. And I can tell they feel confident. They feel good about this answer. But the thing is, I didn't ask how they felt about feedback. I asked them a time they received feedback. So now I have two choices as the recruiter. I can either one, ask again for a specific example, therefore spending more time on this question. And now maybe I don't get to ask other questions I was interested in. Or two, I can keep moving on and knowing that I didn't get an answer to a question that me and my company think is important, and hoping that their answers for these next questions make up for that. So having those specific examples is so important. And what I typically would recommend, if you're not already doing this, I'm going to throw it out there, keeping what we call a brag sheet, or you can call it whatever you want, good deeds, achievements, whatever it may be. But should be this living, breathing document where anytime that you do something that you think is awesome, a time that you got great feedback from your manager or a friend or, you know, a coworker somewhere, there are times that accomplishments that you have, achievements that you've gotten, maybe you got MVP for your team that year, or maybe you got a leadership position in your student org. Those are all things to put in your brag sheet. So that way, when it comes time to prepare for the interview, you're not sitting there thinking, okay, well, I know I've done cool stuff this past year. I have, and you're kind of struggling because time flies. Hello, it's October 11th. It feels like it was January just yesterday. And so having this living, breathing document will make you feel so much more confident preparing for the interview, already having specific examples built out of times that you were awesome. And it's just fun to look at sometimes to see your career growth. I update mine like every 3 months is typically what I do. But it's a great way to prepare and make you feel good about yourself. So that about wraps it up for me. So just to recap there, know the types of responsibilities that you want in a job, even if you don't know the exact title or position that you want. Expand that network and actively engage in it to gain access to new opportunities. And then lastly, be ready with those specific examples because recruiters are definitely going to ask for them. Thanks. And I think Natalie, you said probably about 5-ish minutes for questions, right?
Yes. Yeah. So if anyone has a question for Kirsten, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask. Or if you'd like to, you can also put it in the chat. Kadri.
Hi, I have a question about specifically if recruiters were to ask, like, tell me about a time where you got feedback. I just wanted to know, Kirsten, would you recommend saying like a positive feedback, or should we say like a feedback that was sort of a critique and how we fix that when recruiters ask that question, or if they even ask that question?
Yeah, great question. Usually a recruiter, like the way that I phrase it, and I say constructive feedback, it usually means, yes, a piece of constructive criticism that you have gotten about your performance. And I'm looking for, okay, how did you improve upon that? How did you implement it moving forward? So if you're getting feedback saying, hey, this happened, because I'm using a real life example, this happened to me. A manager came to me and said, hey, I've noticed that you've been really negative in meetings. Somebody else mentioned it. What can we do? And I said, oh, I'm going to turn this around. And I said, I'm going to start every meeting with something positive. I'm going to end every meeting with something positive. And I am going to be a shining example. I'm going to ask for more help from my team members because I'm feeling overwhelmed. And then like a month later, my manager said, oh, I noticed that you're so much more positive in meetings. So that's a real life example that I've actually used in an interview and gotten good feedback about the answer. So taking a negative and turning it into a positive, because it's not always all sunshine and rainbows.
Right. All right. That helps a lot. Thank you.
And then Nicole, you had your hand raised. You want to go next?
Hi, nice to meet you. I had a question regarding the regarding like how to like offer like more engagement, because like for me, like I've connected with people on LinkedIn and like I don't want my engagement to be like not meaningful or like to come off as like fake, you know what I mean? Or just to like doing it just where it's not like a genuine engagement, but like also I want to keep it more like professional. So like how do you like pull from like a certain like phrase word bank or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great question. And what I would say is I think it comes down to who are you trying to engage with? Because hopefully if it's somebody who is within your industry or within roles that you're interested in, hopefully you have thoughts and your own ideas and opinions about certain topics within that industry. So, if somebody is posting about, hey, I think this new marketing strategy is a really great idea, hopefully that's something that you're interested in, right? Because you're following it, you're actively, following this person, and you can comment on it and say, oh yeah, I think that's a really great idea too. I also noticed X, Y, and Z as I've been, in my classes or as I'm at my current job. This is something that's working for me too. And being able to offer this little bit of a back and forth, and hopefully maybe sometimes people will continue a conversation in the comments. And so trust me, it's never really coming off as fake. I would say try to avoid things where it's like, if you're only liking things or, I guess making comments like, oh, congrats. Oh, great job. Oh, interesting idea. Try to stay away from those things. I mean, obviously a few of them are few and far between. That's totally fine. But try to make it more like I'm giving a suggestion. I'm showing my ideas and my opinions, because that can create more of a dialogue.
I love that answer. Q. Paula, want to go next?
Oh no, I can't hear
Can you
you.
hear me now?
Oh, there you are.
Okay. My question was, how do I build a relationship with recruiters just to get across the type of responsibilities that I want for the job that I'm seeking? Because I kind of get a little nervous on LinkedIn when people reach out to me that they're recruiters, and I don't necessarily know what to look out in order to establish their credibility to see if I can really trust them with moving forward and sending my applications for jobs.
Yeah, of course. So are you more saying that you're trying to trust the recruiter, or you want the recruiter to trust you?
Kind of both ways.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's LinkedIn that scares you, that's okay. But that is where a lot of recruiters are reaching out and messaging people and finding people, because they're not just looking at your profile. Sometimes they're also looking at, what are you posting about? What are you talking about? There you're establishing credibility in my mind. If you are having a personal brand on LinkedIn, or at least trying to, right, in the baby stages, I think that goes a long way. I know that I've had recruiters reach out to me based off of my LinkedIn content, not even because necessarily my profile or my experience, but because I was trying to establish myself as like a recruiter expert. And so that had made a difference. And then on the opposite side, if you want to trust a recruiter, do a deep dive into them. Our profiles are there for a reason. We want people to look at them. I'm always so flattered when somebody's on a phone interview with me and they say, hey, I saw on your profile that you went on this Harry Potter trip. Again, a real life story. Went to Harry Potter World in June. I saw you went to Harry Potter World. That looked really awesome. Tell me a little bit about it. That says to me, wow, they did some homework on me. They took the time to investigate my profile and my posts. They are really engaged in our conversation. So again, hopefully it's a little bit of a back and forth between you guys. I hope that's helpful.
That's great, Kirsten. Thank you. I see a couple more hands raised and some questions in the chat. We're going to get back to that at the end. So we're going to keep going with our next two speakers. You're welcome to raise your hand after they talk as well. And then once we're done with all of our speakers, I'm going to open it back up for questions, and I'll definitely make sure we get to those questions that you girls are putting in the chat as well. Thank you so much, Kirsten. That was so helpful and incredible advice. So thank you for sharing. Isis, can you introduce our next speaker, please?
Of course. Hello, I'm Isis, and our next speaker is Kimmy Brill, early talent recruiter at Kohl's, a leading retailer with stores in 49 states. Kimmy's passion is truly people, and we are thrilled to get to hear her wisdom tonight. Welcome, Kimmy.
Thank you, Isis. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to be with all of you this evening, and it actually works out really well. The things that I wanted to just kind of go over with all of you relates to Paige's question that I know we had a lot of others want answers to. So I can address that here during my little spiel to all of you. So yeah, just a little bit more about myself, Isis. I appreciate that intro. I've been with Kohl's for now 6 years. I actually started early career, started as an intern and worked my way up, worked in the stores as an assistant store manager for 4 years, and then now have been in this role about 2.5 years as an early talent recruiter. Just find one passion in getting to engage with early careers, what they're kind of looking for, what they're hoping to find. Because that was myself not that long ago. I feel like I can't keep up with this generation even more, even though I feel like I was just in school. But it is cool to just full circle support students looking for similar career paths as I once did. So things that really came to mind when Natalie approached me for just things to consider when job hunting and also mistakes to avoid. Hopefully I have some good notes for all of you to just take back as you consider what those look like for you. So kind of the first things, I broke it out into like 3 sections of just resume. I wanted to just talk about that because that is truly your life and professional experience on a piece of paper and really what defines your kind of background. So wanted to start with that, talk about what the job hunting process could look like for you, interviewing, and then I just have a couple mistakes to avoid. But coming up to the resume, just in general, the format of it, is it clean, concise, and thinking of putting yourself in the shoes of a recruiter or an employer? Does it have everything that they need? Do they have your contact info? Do they know your experiences? So really thinking of how you can elevate your resume for the specific roles is, I think, from a recruiter standpoint, with how many that we review, it all helps. So as you guys, as the job hunters, taking just that little bit of extra time, if you have a professional summary towards the top of your resume, typically it's like your contact information. Under it, you can do a professional summary, which is basically your elevator pitch of who you are, what you're looking for, what skills you possess. And then I always kind of recommend at the end of the resume of that professional summary of just putting something in regards to like, I hope to leverage my abilities to successfully fill X role at X company. So while you are doing that, we know each kind of resume is specific to that job. And then furthermore, do a little bit more work with that. So as you are applying to the roles, it could be the same marketing role at different companies. But if you look at the job description and the job application, there may be nuances in terms of keywords or skills or qualifications. So while you may possess them and just have them worded differently, update your skills, update the experiences that you have at currently on your resume. So it does read specific to what those maybe terms are that that company uses versus another. Because we know it's very easy to just copy and paste. It can get pretty tiring doing your resume over and over to the same company. But I promise, if you take those extra couple minutes, make it specific to the role and to that job, it can definitely help you with that initial phase. So Paige's question, you're a new professional, maybe a college student who maybe doesn't have the experience or qualifications for someone looking for that internship or entry-level role, maybe probably for this group in the marketing space. I always recommend taking those maybe courses or projects that you have been doing over your career of college and using those as examples. So you may need to pick and choose maybe the like part-time or full-time job experiences you have done and bulk up maybe the courses or projects that you've done and similarly format them to as if they were a job experience, right? So like, what did you do? What were your accomplishments? Make sure you're quantifying every little piece of, I did this project, here's where we landed with it, to still show that you do have those experiences throughout that. And then another piece, Paige, I'll get to that at the very end, is just not wanting, especially this group of ladies, to not apply because you don't feel like you're qualified. But I'll get to that here momentarily. Moving out of resume into job hunting. For you guys as job seekers, I think it is very important for each of you to just evaluate what are your top priorities for the company or the role that you're applying to. So are you looking for a company that maybe has similar values of like a mission statement, or do they have a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion involvement, volunteerism, or is it maybe somewhere you're looking to really progress your career beyond the role that you're trying to succeed? So really, I think for you as a job seeker, taking that time and what are the roles that you're looking for? Do these companies really align? Because if you are applying to a role or a company you maybe are not as passionate as, we want you, best case scenario, you interview, you get the job. We want you showing up authentically, very excited and passionate for that role. So from the get-go, just make sure you're looking for those jobs that really align with what you're looking for. And then that kind of goes into this mistake to avoid. So if it maybe isn't a role or a company that is your top choice, and you maybe get a chance to do a phone screen with a resume, or maybe do a first round interview with the employer, I recommend treating it and showing up as if it is the job for you, the company for you. Showing up, putting your best foot forward, I think really shows, because similar to what Kirsten was talking about is networking. You never know that maybe that person that did the phone screen with you is going to be another recruiter. I mean, the world is small. You may never know that they could be a recruiter that you end up trying to apply with down the road, and they maybe remember the experience that they had with you, whether good or bad. So even if it maybe isn't the role that you are really, really excited about, still show up as eager as possible, and you can take that time and build that network, ask for feedback, see if there's any opportunities maybe elsewhere outside of that role that recruiter or employer could support you with. All right, as far as interviewing, one thing I would recommend to all of you is, so you go through your interview, you answer all the questions, and the employer kind of just opens it up to, are there any questions that you have? I recommend kind of the last question that you can use to kind of wrap up the interview after you've obviously done your research, asked some questions, is something in regards to asking that interviewer if there are any questions, concerns, or hesitations that you could answer as you are being considered for the role. So that really opens it up to one, feedback of, is there any hesitations that employer has maybe about your qualifications, how you did in the interview, but it also gives you that chance to rebuttal and really show, one, you're interested, one, that you do actually have those qualifications and skills and eagerness to fulfill that role. So asking that question of, are there any hesitations or anything that I can show you as to why I would not be considered for this role at the end of the interview. So last things, as far as mistakes to avoid, what Kirsten was kind of talking about in terms of making sure you're providing clear and concise examples. One thing that I have kind of used as helping prepare candidates for interviews, behavioral-based questions are really the main ones that we see, which are those, tell me about a time when XYZ, or explain to me when XYZ. So in those types of situations, you can remember an acronym called STAR. It stands for situation, task, action, and results. And that is 4 great ways to break down the interview question. So situation, you're kind of laying down the background, when it happened, who you were working with. The task at hand, obviously explaining what it was you're working on. Action, what your specific role was, what you did to help support the task at hand. And then result brings everything back from the S, T, and A together to really quantify and show what it was, the impact that you had with that certain situation. So hopefully that helps with that piece there. But very last thing I wanted to leave with Sky Society, since it is a group of wonderful women. So even if you feel like you are not fully qualified, men actually apply to jobs when they maybe are only 60% meet the qualifications in the job description or application, while women, we only apply if we are borderline 100% qualified for the role. Right? You guys feel that way? I'm sure you do. So that self-perception that we have on ourselves and our experiences and qualities hinder us. So I say apply, even if, Paige, like you said, you have the internship experience, it may not meet the full 3 years. Apply. You are more than qualified. You meet those qualifications. So do not let that self-perception hold you guys back in terms of making that application, just doing it. And then those tips that I talked about previously is cater that resume specifically to the job, really show up and show out during that interview process, and they will quickly see, yes, this person is well qualified for this role. So don't let that hinder you, but that is all that I wanted to go over with all of you.
Thank you so much, Kimmy.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I'm gonna open it up to questions. So if you want to raise your hand, I'm gonna go in order. And we'll start with you, Trinity.
About like using courses and projects for on our resume, how would you suggest we format that? Would you suggest that we do it as if it was like a job and we have like the course title or like the project, and then like we list like the details about it underneath as if it was a legitimate job?
Yes. Yep. So bullet points underneath of like what you were specifically doing, what your role was, maybe even if it was like a grade, the grade that you got, or something in like still quantifying what it was specifically in that course that is showing that you have those experiences, I think can definitely help. And then skills too, if there were certain skills that you acquired during that course or project, adding those in as well. And I've seen resumes where even under their skills, they do like technical, like personal, and then like courses, like skills that they maybe meet there. So yeah, I would definitely line it up similar to just a job experience as well. Good question.
All right, Julene.
Hi. So my question's about like the resumes.
Mhm.
So I know we have to like cater it towards the job description. So how do you find like the exact keywords that you should have? Because I feel like I'd never know what the keywords should be.
Yeah. So if it says like plus 2 years experience in X, so if it was like market graphic design, or I don't even know all the marketing side of it, because there's a ton of keywords. But if there's things in terms of like, I think a lot of applications have a preview of like about the company. If there's things that align with what you have values in, you can add that into your resume, maybe into your professional bio, that you do towards the top. So I would just say whatever those qualifications or desired qualifications or qualities that they look for, those are kind of your key buzzwords that you can use to help find them. And then I almost want to try and find, it's dumb, you guys, but I've Googled like key phrases to use on a resume to like quantify certain things. So let me see if I can find, but we can move on to the next question. So I'll drop it in the chat.
I want to add on to that for the keyword piece. In the Accelerator, we use a paid tool called Job Scan, which helps you, like, it'll scan the resume and tell you the keywords. A cheat, if you want a free way to find keywords in a resume, is going to ChatGPT or in a job description, and you could ask ChatGPT like what phrases are used most frequently in this job description, and it can kind of pull a list of like, all right, it used graphic design 6 times. You may be like, okay, well, maybe I should make sure I talk a lot about my graphic design experience. So that's a fun way to use ChatGPT instead of like being, I know sometimes people use ChatGPT to like write your resume. I don't think that's great, but you can use it to kind of help you find keywords. Okay, Emily.
Yeah, hey. I had a kind of specific question regarding interview questions. In terms of asking about pay, I know that that's always kind of a tricky one, but a lot of job postings will post like a really large range. So just wondering what your recommendation is on like where in the interview process or application process to ask for that more specific salary number.
Really good question. I guess it kind of depends, because if you potentially are in contact one-on-one with a recruiter, maybe before even initially getting to the interview stage, you could take that time of just like, hey, I was wondering what the salary was for this position. Or even in the interview, I mean, they do open it up to questions at the end. I think that's a good spot where you can also ask that specifically to here at Kohl's. When you are interviewing for a role, it's typically with like the hiring manager or hiring leaders. So they may have really good insights as well. So I would say in either position. And I think more and more, Emily, states are just having a lot more pay transparency. So yes, there may be some large wages, but I think that with where we're going, I think it's totally appropriate in either stage to ask that question. Because I mean, you want to know, don't want to waste time if it's way, way below, or speed up the process if it's way above. So yeah, I would say ask at any point when you feel comfortable.
Awesome, thanks.
And
Hi there, how are you guys? So, I have a specific question related to LinkedIn. I'm someone who has past 6 years of experience into marketing, and I have worked in different domains of marketing, for example, CRM, brand marketing, and things like that. When it comes to applying to jobs, since I'm here new in Canada, I have been, since you also said that we need to customize the resume based on the job. Uh, but we can do that for a resume. But the second step that happens is the prospect employer comes and looks at your LinkedIn, but you cannot customize it specifically for one job every time, of course. So, what would be the best way to put up LinkedIn such that it aligns with every specific job that we are applying to?
Yeah, good question. I would say if there's maybe like very keywords that you're seeing in qualifications as far as that you're seeing on your job descriptions or your resume that are pretty consistent of like different things that you're seeing with the roles you're applying to, I would use those as kind of the main ones that you then transfer over to LinkedIn. As you are applying to the roles, I would just spend, if you are actively applying and interviewing through like LinkedIn posts, I would pretty frequently every like month or so check in and make sure that still aligns with what you're putting on your resume, just so nothing is outdated. Or if there's other skills that you've been adding to your resume, make sure that those get in. So it is a little bit tricky for sure, since it is different roles for different companies. But if you feel like there's pretty strong descriptions in your resume for what you kind of have, you can just kind of throw that in there. And then, of course, they are going to still have your resume on hand. So they'll be able to preview both. Good question.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sorry, Anna, if you could ask it in the chat, we're going to get on to our next.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question. Thank you so much, Kimmy, for sharing such great advice. I loved all the areas you talked about. So thank you so much. And again, if we haven't got to your question in the chat, we're going to do one more Q&A at the end. Yasmin, if you want to introduce our last speaker for the night.
Hello, everybody. Our final speaker is going to be Gabby Michnoff, who works in talent acquisition at Sotheby's. Sotheby's is the world's premier destination for art and luxury, established back in 1744. We're excited to have you here today, Gabby.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I have had an interesting, I guess, background and history with recruiting. I fell into it, honestly, just through my personal network from graduating at UVA. And I actually started at an agency. So I'll give some insight into working with agency recruiters, because I know somebody asked about that earlier. And after being in an agency for a couple of years, I went to an executive search firm and then just went in-house. And the big names that I've worked at were WeWork for about 3 years in the height of it. And then unfortunately during the crash as well of WeWork, and Sotheby's, where I'm at right now. So both very different experiences, but I would say highly sought after companies for a lot of people who are either just interested at the time of WeWork and getting their foot in the door at an exciting company, or at a place like Sotheby's, just really passionate about the arts and culture space. I'm kind of going to go through a little bit of like what I view the job application process to be and dig into a few areas. There probably will be some overlap with what the other speakers said, but I tried to take notes during and add a little bit more insight into other areas just based on my experience. So LinkedIn is honestly my best friend when I am personally job searching, and often when I'm recruiting for candidates. If I am job searching myself or advising people on job searching, use LinkedIn and use LinkedIn messages often. Once you submit an application, find 3 people at the company who you think are relevant to shoot them a message. You can send them a note if you're connecting with them and they don't accept messages, or you can upgrade to premium and message a certain number of people each month. And the way I would tailor it is like try and find who the hiring manager is and then find maybe 1 or 2 individuals who are peers, or maybe somebody who went to a school, who went to your school, who you could have some personal connection with, letting them know, saying, hey, I just would love to pick your brain about your experience working at Sotheby's. I think it's really important to just show that like you're just looking to network at that time, and really build a connection. You're not looking for them to recommend you because they don't know you yet, or share your information with the recruiter. You're just being really genuine and saying, I'm interested. Your team seems exciting. Would love to learn a little bit more about it. I see that you're hiring. And don't be afraid to follow up on those messages. Recruiters get messages all the time on LinkedIn, and even my hiring managers tell me they'd never check their messages and get messages all the time. If you send a message, maybe wait a week and follow up, and just say, hey, just checking in, making sure you saw my message. Don't be afraid to do that. It really is just kind of about finding that one person who can help you get your foot in the door and kind of be your advocate. At one point, I personally was doing a job search and I was looking to get into the venture capital space. And I messaged so many people who were head of community or head of talent acquisition at these venture capital firms. And I got in touch with somebody, and it turns out there was a listserv that every single recruiter in the venture capital space is a part of, and they use it to literally just share talent across each other. I built a connection with this one individual who wasn't hiring, and she offered to share my resume through that listserv. And I got so many interviews and so many opportunities to connect through that. It just takes one person. I had to reach out to so many people or kiss a lot of frogs to get there, but that one person then genuinely opened up so many doors for me. And I will just always be so forever grateful for those types of opportunities. When you're actually applying to a job, don't spam the company with more than 5 applications, I would say. The other 2 individuals spoke about being really tailored in your approach and specific about what you're applying for. A lot of what recruiters use is, it's called an applicant tracking system. So if you apply to 7, 10, 15 jobs, it will all be tied to your page. So I will look you up as you're applying. I'll review your resume, and it'll say, for me, we use one system on the side that shows everything that you've applied to. And while we appreciate your genuine interest in the company, it also, to me, just screams, hey, they're just looking for any old job. They just want to get their foot in the door. And it just doesn't seem like a really intentional and thoughtful approach. One other thing that I did just want to show, because somebody asked about tailoring LinkedIn versus tailoring your resume. This is from the recruiter perspective. When we search for candidates, is the way it works on LinkedIn, is I would type in a job title, marketing assistant, but you can see here that it shows that there are so many different jobs that are job titles that are also tailored or connected to a general marketing assistant. So this isn't necessarily from like a marketing for yourself perspective, but if you're worried about recruiters being able to find you on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has done so much research. They've been around for 20 plus years. They just have so much information. So they have pulled together to try and determine like what could a marketing assistant be at Sotheby's versus Kohl's versus Gartner, and how can we make sure that it's as uniform as possible, despite it maybe being different for Gabby's marketing title versus Natalie's marketing title. So I think rest assured that like LinkedIn really is trying to work in your favor as much as possible. And this is what it looks like for recruiters on the back end when we're going to search. LinkedIn also does a lot of slight manipulations, we can call it, that will put different profiles in favor to come up as I'm searching. It shows current or past and locations, current or open to relocating, but then it also will show, I don't know where it is right now for some reason, but it also will pull like this number of people are marked as open to new opportunities. And that is really, really important. So if you are open to new opportunities, make sure that that's tailored. Make sure that it shows that like you're open to being in New York or San Francisco, if that's genuine, what different types of jobs you're open to, because even if you're not in a marketing assistant role, but you're interested in that, you might then be pulled just as I'm looking for marketing assistants. So I think that that's hopefully some helpful knowledge to just get about what it looks like on the LinkedIn recruiter side, and happy to show more information there as well. In terms of like actually getting an interview, once you've gotten your foot in the door, a recruiter has reached out to you, I would say most recruiters typically just do a phone call for the first round. If they do a video, great, be prepared for that. But when it comes to a phone call, it might sound silly, but smile as you're talking or stand up as you're talking on the phone. Your body will naturally encourage you to just have more energy, sound more enthused, and that much more engaged. And your tone on the call can really kind of set the experience that you'll have for the rest of the conversation. We are looking for people who are not only passionate about our companies, but passionate about the roles, and strong communication skills is one of the I would say easiest things to check mark for those who might not have extensive years of professional experience. And communication skills are really hard to teach. So if you have it or you're working on it, really showcase that. Also, in regards to kind of closing with next steps, and I'll get into salary as well and just give you guys some insight into how I have that conversation. Close on the first call. This is the agency recruiter in me, is like, I think of recruiting and job searching as a sales job. You are selling yourself. Do you have any hesitations about my background, or is there anything that you have further questions on that I can clarify? What do next steps look like? When should I expect to hear back from you? If I don't hear back from you within a week, is it okay if I shoot you a follow-up email? Being really explicit and showing that you're taking that initiative. We recruiters interview hundreds of people all the time. And unfortunately, some things slip our minds when we don't really want them to. And sometimes you sending me that follow-up note a week after gives me that trigger that I'm like, you know what, maybe I was on the fence about this person, but look how diligent they are. Look how much they want this job. I want to give them a second chance. And so small things like that can really make such a difference. When it comes to salary, and I know, Emily, you asked about it being like a big range and where you fall within that range. I think sometimes it's hard for a recruiter to say super early on in the process, because the range is there for us to understand, okay, if we've got somebody with 1 year of experience or 5 years of experience applying to the job and we're open to that big range, or somebody who's an up and comer and they could fit into it. So it really might depend on like how the interview experience goes in terms of where you fall within that range. I am always hoping that I can ask about salary expectations before the candidate asks me. So one of my questions is, what are you ideally looking to target? And I would say if you get that question from a recruiter, be super honest, but also reasonable. Don't shoot for a number that is like super unexpected or the highest end of the range, when maybe you're coming in with a lower number of years of experience for what they're looking for. I'm incredibly transparent when it comes to salary, because I hate to get to final stages and it not be something that we can meet. And Sotheby's, for better or for worse, has smaller bands, so we don't have as much flexibility that often. But if I get a candidate who says, hey, I'm looking for $55,000 on the base and the role calls for a $50,000 base, I will be honest with them and I will say, great, I appreciate that. We can't meet your expectations. Are you okay with a $50,000 base? So hopefully the recruiter that you're speaking with will give you the chance to say, you know what, I am actually open to that, and not close the door at a point. Or if you say, you know what, I'm not, but thank you so much, and you can look for other opportunities that might be more in your range. In terms of video interviews as well, going into the interview experience and process, maybe that comes after a phone call. Super basic here, just have a clean background, dress appropriately, at least from the top up. Try not to read off of your computer. I have gotten feedback from hiring managers that either the person has sounded robotic or they can literally see the eyes darting across the screen as you're reading. off of your screen. And you guys can probably see as I'm referring to my notes on the side, me doing the same exact thing. And while it shows some sense of being prepared that you have notes, sorry, have it. I think it also unfortunately makes it seem like you're not necessarily able to think on your feet and be authentic. And I think that that's really important in an interview process as well. And when you get a job, is being able to think on your feet. In person, super important, show up early. Being on time is being late. The recruiter has to come get you, bring you to the conference room that you're meeting the hiring manager in. Be 15 minutes early. I cannot tell you how many people who show up at the time of the interview. And that's honestly just at the end of the day, cutting into your interview experience and your ability to have a full conversation with the panel or individual that you're meeting with at the time. Bring a printed resume, take notes while you're meeting with the hiring managers or the hiring team. Don't have your head down the entire time, but show that you're engaged and you're actively taking those notes. And that will help you with your thank you notes. I can't tell you how few thank you notes are sent out these days. And my hiring managers are always so overjoyed when they get a thank you note. And you can tailor those thank you notes based on the conversations that you had to be personalized to each individual. If you don't have the emails from the people, use your recruiter. Reach out to the recruiter. Hey, do you mind forwarding this message along? Or do you mind sharing Erica's email with me? Whatever it may be, going that extra mile is really, really helpful. If you don't get the job, always feel free to follow up with the recruiter and ask for feedback. Hopefully the recruiter is either giving you that feedback, depending on what stage that you get to, or they have some notes and they're able to share. You might not get an answer, but you might also get an answer that really helps you prepare for a different interview experience. And strategically follow up as well, very similar to the LinkedIn messages. If you've had an interview and you haven't heard back in 5 business days, you should absolutely feel free to follow up. Again, it might just be that trigger that a recruiter needs. The team might be debriefing, people might be on vacation, but following up and trying to get insight, I think will only help you feel that much more confident in the interview process. Also, I mentioned this a little bit before, but digging into it more, lean on your recruiter. Ask if they have tips or tricks in preparing for upcoming interviews. We are there to try and help you as much as possible. And so feel free to always reach out at any stage of the process. When a recruiter says, feel free to follow up if you have questions, genuinely, take that initiative. I've built some great relationships with people. I start texting with them if they have questions and things like that. And it's a really great way to build a relationship with a recruiter who can be your advocate, because this kind of goes back to not applying to 5+ jobs at any given company. If you apply to a couple of jobs and you happen to have the opportunity to connect with a recruiter, that recruiter might be able to say, hey, you know what, you're not a great fit for this position, but I actually have this role that I think you'd be a better fit for, or I have this position that might come up in the future. Let's stay in touch. I'm doing that all the time. I have so many positions that I can move people around within. If they don't get one job, maybe they're open to a temporary position, and maybe then they'll get that position. They can eventually move into a permanent role. And so building that rapport with a recruiter goes such a long way, because again, they can only help you, hopefully, at the end of the day. And then Kimmy mentioned this earlier, but treating every job like it's your number one. When I was job hunting, that was the advice my dad gave me. He was like, go after every job like you want an offer there. You would rather have the opportunity to turn something down than to be left with nothing to pick from. So I think it's really important, and you learn so much about yourself going through an interview process, so much about a company. You might be surprised at the end of the day and might actually like the job. So yeah, I think that's really important. And then I know I said I was going to talk about working with agencies, because I have been in an agency, and then I will leave it for questions. But I get it. Some agencies can come across as sketchy. Recruiters can be super aggressive in their messaging. Take a look at the company. There are some really big companies out there that are just standard, and unfortunately recruiters have quotas to meet when they're at agencies. But that also means that like they want you to get a job just as much as you want to get a job, because they will likely get paid for you getting a job. Some of the big names out there like ExecuSearch and Insight Global, if you find the right person, will be great. Yes, recruiters at agencies can sometimes be sharky, but use them to your advantage. And feel free to stick up for yourself. Say, no, that role doesn't interest me. Do not send my application or anything like that. And then there are some boutique agencies. That's where I worked. I worked at a small firm called Bats Recruiting. They mostly focused on sales talent in the tech startup world. And we were just very niche. And I think we became kind of the go-to for a lot of people in that industry. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Gabby, for sharing. You touched on so many different things. I'm so glad you did, especially salary. I think a lot of people, especially I know in this audience, when you are new, there's a lot of fear around saying a number and saying like how much you want to make. But I love what you said about if your number is too high, the recruiter is just going to tell you, actually, this role only pays this much. Are you okay? And at that point, you have the opportunity to either say yes, that's fine, or you can say no, this role actually isn't for me. So if you have been kind of doing the thing where you don't want to say a number because you're afraid, you don't really have anything there to lose. I'm going to open up for questions now. If you want to raise your hand to ask Gabby any questions on what she went over. I have some questions in the chat. There's a question here on resume length. I don't know if you have any thoughts on if it has to be on one page or any thoughts there.
Yes, one page, unless you've been working for like 10 to 15 plus years. I don't think there's really any need for it to be over one page. I've been working for 8 years and there's no way mine is going to be over one page. I think especially as like a junior professional, it's so important for it to just be one page.
I agree. Perfect. Kylie, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, yes, hopefully it makes sense. I'm trying to figure out how to word it. But like, let's say that, because I live in Salt Lake. So let's say I wanted to apply for a job in like California. So from like a recruiter's standpoint, like would it be a turnoff if you're like, oh, this person doesn't live in California, even if they're like willing to relocate? Does that have anything to do with like if you get an interview or not? I don't know.
Great
Does that make
question.
sense?
So 2 slight manipulation tricks. If you're looking to move to like one location or the job's in the location, this goes back to what Kimmy was saying in tailoring your resume to the job itself. Put your resume location as the city that you want to relocate to. When you get on the phone with the recruiter, say, hey, I'm in Salt Lake, but I have my sister who lives in San Francisco and I can book a flight and I can pack up my bags and I can go couch surf with her. For a lot of our more junior roles, we look for people who can start in as little as 2 to 3 weeks sometimes. And we do take people who relocate, but I dig in. I'm like, you have to be willing to literally drop everything and move here within a week. Maybe you go back on the weekend and you pack your stuff up, but like, do you have friends you can stay with? What does that look like? Because it will, like, if they need a month to move, like sometimes that just won't work for us.
Okay, so kind of try to make it look like, oh, I'm in California, but okay.
Yeah, put a friend's address. If that's a friend that you can stay with who lives in San Francisco, let's say, you can say, hey, you know what? I am currently in Salt Lake, but I'm moving and I'm going to be staying on a friend's couch until I find a new place. I'm actively looking at apartments. And so that's why my address is my friend's apartment.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Nicole, if you want to go next.
Hi. So I kind of had a couple questions, but I'll stick to the one. So when you mentioned earlier that like as a recruiter you can see the job applications that people like sent out, so it's kind of like floating in the LinkedIn sphere, I guess. So my question is regarding like if let's say like you sent in an application, you interviewed for the job, and we'll use my example, like this all happened to me, and like I didn't get the position, but I still get like emails and kind of the company reaching out telling me I should apply for the same position again, or like another kind of like training round of it. Do you recommend I reapply? Is that like
That might just be a marketing flaw on the company.
okay?
To be totally honest. I haven't experienced that myself where companies are reaching out and saying, like, I'm not getting marketing emails from them saying, apply to this job, apply to this job. If you've applied and you've interviewed and you unfortunately haven't been chosen to go forward, I would maybe just take that email that you're getting that's saying, hey, apply, forward it to your contact, the person you spoke with, and say, I just want to double check. Like, I know we spoke and I'm not moving forward. Is this an email I should be ignoring? And maybe it's something that's like a marketing thing on their side that they can then fix, because I understand how that could sometimes be confusing.
I also just want to add one more thing is I talk to a lot of girls, especially in marketing. There are also a lot of scams out there, and unfortunately a lot of companies trying to prey on you. And so I don't know what the email said, but sometimes if it says something like you didn't get the job, but now you have to pay for a training program, I've seen that as well. That's, I would say, as a big red flag. I've seen a lot of the scam stuff. So also just be mindful of that, of if it hopefully is what Gabby said, just a mistake, but just be extra careful.
Yeah, no company should ever make you pay for anything in any job interview process, unless obviously you have to come in person, you have to pay for your transportation to get there, unless they say they will pay for it.
Yeah, be extra careful there. Trinity.
So earlier you mentioned like after you send in a resume, kind of doing like a reaching out for an informational interview. Would you recommend, because I know earlier it was mentioned, like look for companies that your values align with, kind of doing an informational interview beforehand, so that way it just doesn't seem disingenuous that you're trying to reach out to someone, so that way you have somebody in just so you get the job?
I think it can go either way. If there's me personally, I will say I don't really enjoy when people reach out to me and they say, I'm interested in Sotheby's. Are you free to chat? I'm like, that's great. Like, what specifically are you interested in? Or when candidates get on the phone and they're like, as we talked about earlier, I'm open to anything. It's like, well, I don't want to do your job search for you. Like, this is really where you kind of have to take control. And so that's why I personally like when candidates are like, I applied for the pre-sale coordinator position and I'm super excited about that. Like, are you free to connect? You could say, I don't see a position open online that maybe fits my experience, and I'd love to learn what positions might be opening in the future. But I think it might seem weird, but like sometimes giving more specific information gives somebody more to respond to, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Of course.
Ava.
Hi, so I am graduating in May, and I was wondering if you could give some like clarity into the hiring cycle, because I'm like starting my job search process, but I found a lot of times, like you kind of hinted, that these junior roles or entry level roles are like the turnover is very quick and they want people to start in like 2 weeks. And I feel like it's kind of hard, like being a planner and wanting to like plan out my life, but then being told, oh, like come back in March. I was wondering if you could just like give some clarity on that, or yeah.
It'll be different with every company. We have an early talent program. I'm unfortunately not directly involved with it, but I obviously work with the team who does. And so they have interns, and then those interns have the opportunity to become associates once they graduate. They start interviewing for the interns around January. I know, like in banking, they're interviewing interns in like September, October, which seems super crazy. It will just unfortunately be different by every company. I've had conversations with candidates who say, you know what, I actually not graduating until December. and I'll say, great, use my Calendly and set up a meeting for closer to December and we can see what's open at the time. But most of the junior roles that we have at Sotheby's that aren't a part of our early talent program will be quick turnaround. I know it's stressful as somebody who likes to plan myself that it seems ominous, but there will always be a hiring market happening. And maybe this is a good time to then just like see opportunities that companies offer and start networking and building those connections. So as we talked about earlier, like maybe a job doesn't even get posted online because they're like, oh, we've spoken to Eva already and she's actually great. And we've been just kind of waiting for this opportunity to be open.
Thank you.
Paula.
Hi, I had a question. I kind of want to know your thoughts on job posts that have been either reposted or have like more than 500 applicants. Do you think we should still apply or should we find another way to stand out?
I think the way to stand out is to message people. If you definitely throw in your application and then message those 3 people, like doing everything you can to get noticed. And if it's reposted, definitely. Sometimes, I'm trying to think of, sometimes honestly, LinkedIn's a little bit weird and it just like automatically will repost when I didn't even ask for it to be reposted. Or I've reposted because I had an offer that ended up getting turned down and I need to start over my search, or maybe 2 headcount has opened up for the role instead of 1. So you never know what's happening on the back end there. I think as we talked about before, like the statistics are so low for women feeling encouraged to apply to jobs. Definitely, if you are excited by the opportunity, throw your hat in the ring and try and make a connection so that your resume can be cherry picked out.
I have one last question before we end our Q&A. This one is from our LinkedIn group, also by Paula, but I liked it because I think it's related to our theme tonight and I think what a lot of girls face, and that is being ghosted. So how many of you have been applied a job and been ghosted? Yeah, all of us. It's so fun, huh? So I was wondering if you have any insights there. I know a lot of times I talk to women that get very discouraged because they're like, I'm sending my resume out, I'm just not hearing back, and it is very mentally discouraging. And if there's anything either they can, how to get through that or what they can learn from that, because it's not very fun.
No, it's definitely not fun. And I'm definitely at fault of doing that. I feel so guilty when 500 plus people apply to a job. It is very time consuming to be able to get through that. And I do my absolute best to try and get through that. But it's definitely, I've been on the other side as well, applying and never hearing back, or applying and hearing back like 6 months later. I'm like, well, I actually got a new job in the meantime, or I completely forgot about it. I think it can be discouraging, but you just have to remember that like it only takes one. Keeping track of like where you've applied to and maybe where you didn't hear back from, and maybe that's then a cultural value that doesn't resonate, part of a company that maybe doesn't communicate to candidates in a way that makes you feel super excited and accepted and appreciated in your efforts. I think, again, just doing everything you can to like personally make a connection and get in touch with people goes such a long way. And just knowing that like you're not the only one. When there are 500 people applying to a job, that probably is like almost 500 minutes for a recruiter to be able to go through all of those resumes and being able to make a decision of, yes, this is who I want to go forward with, or no, this is not the right fit. And sometimes it's just a matter of timing. Like if a job's posted and I get 40 applicants, I'll go through those first 40 people and maybe I've made my hire out of that first 40 batch, but a new set of 40 people have applied. And I unfortunately the team doesn't have a chance to get to those individuals because we've already kind of gone through our first wave of candidates. So that is a good timing thing, Paula, is like if the role is reposted, having those alerts and being really proactive from a timing perspective, being one of the first resumes in the door will greatly increase your chances of being seen.
I think a couple things to take away what Gabby just said is that it could have nothing to do with you being qualified or good enough for the role. So hopefully that makes you feel a lot better. It could just be that they just didn't see your resume, there was too many, or that the role was filled. And so hopefully that helps at least with like the mental aspect of applying to a lot of jobs and not hearing back. And Kirsten shared something in the comments, and this is something that I've told a lot of my students as well, is you can filter on LinkedIn of jobs that were posted in the last 24 hours. Same with Indeed if you want to be the first to apply to new job postings. All right. Thank you so much, Gabby, for sharing all of your advice and answering questions. You are all feel free to keep putting questions here in the chat. I will save these, or you can also post any additional questions you have in our LinkedIn group. I'm going to post one more time. I have a link here. I'm putting it in the chat, and that just has the guests if you want to connect with them on LinkedIn. And then any questions that you have, if you girls can just post them in the group. And then I also have our graduates there as well, who are the ones who put on this event. So thank you so much to all of you for putting this together. We have about 13 minutes left. So if you want to stick around, we have time for about 2 networking rounds where I'll put you in small groups. You can just chat to some of the girls that were here today and say hi and talk about what you've learned. It's totally optional to stay. We normally have more time, but I loved how much we got to dive into Q&A. So thank you so much to Kimmy, Kirsten, and Gabby for just sharing your advice and taking your time to come here and speak and just give your wisdom. Again, my name is Natalie, if we haven't met before, and thank you all for coming to our event. I'm going to go ahead and put you all in breakout rooms if you girls want to stick around for some networking. Make them. All right, I'm going to throw you girls in. I'm going to put you in there for about 5 minutes and bring you back and switch up the rooms. All right, welcome back. We're going to do one more mini one in smaller groups with the last bit of our time. So I'm going to switch up the rooms a little bit and we'll get you out of here in the next 5 or so minutes. All right. Welcome back. All right. Well, quick speed networking, but hopefully you were able to meet some other like-minded individuals. Again, if you weren't able to exchange LinkedIn's, I encourage you to go fill out that directory. I only send it to event attendees, so it's just women who have attended previous events. But thank you again to our incredible guests, Gabby, Kirsten, and Kimmy, and to all of you for coming to a Sky Society event. I'll stay at the end if you have any questions, but have a great rest of your night, guys. Thank you. Bailey Lincoln's still, is he still awake?
Yes, he refuses to go to bed. 2 hours past his bedtime. Well, 2.5 hours past his bedtime.
Well, at least
Oh
he
my
knows a lot
goodness,
about
he's so
recruiting.
cute.
Thank you. Yeah, I think he's finally starting to tire out. Yeah.
Me too.
Are you ready for bed?
But Natalie, I just wanted to stay on for a second and thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I had a really great time, and you have a really engaging group here. There were so many times I do things like this and it's crickets. There's no questions, and it is so disheartening. So this was wonderful to have so many questions, like both in the chat and people coming off of mute. So it just really speaks to the fact that you've clearly created a space where people feel confident enough to get off of mute and ask their questions, which I really appreciated.
Thank you so much. Yes, Sky Society girls are great, and they made, I mean, the girls that put on the event and came were awesome. So thank you again to you for spending your time. And I saw you so active in the chat, which I super appreciate as well. Because I see those questions get asked just all the time. So I'm sure you guys really helped, these women feel a lot more confident and secure going into their job hunt. So thank you.
No problem. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.